Hello, welcome to this next Substance Painter tutorial. In this one we're going to take the Matt character and do a bit of a Squid game on him. So let's start off just by opening that sample file. So it's File, Open Sample, and then we'll pick up Meet Matt. He'll come in a sec. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to sort of paint the the Squid Game guard costume on here. We're going to use a few techniques, and hopefully the result will come out very nicely indeed. Okay, so first of all, up here we've got our head, body and base materials, and because we're going to need to have some variation on there, we're going to need to kind of split each one up into a couple of bits. So we'll start off with the head, and I'm just going to delete this default layer out, and then I'm going to add a folder, and that's going to be kind of the mask folder, and then we'll have another folder, and that will be the hood. So let's just click in there and name those, if my machine will decide. Come on, let me do it. There we go. So we'll call this mask, whoops, and double click there, and we'll call this one hood. There we go. So to control how the materials are distributed, we need to create the black masks. So I'm going to right click and add a black mask on each of these. There we go. So since this wants to be the hood, I want all of this sort of back dome and perhaps some of the inner to be exposed. So to do that, we'll go to the polygon fill, and then I'm just going to switch over to the mask view. Now you can either do that up here by using the drop down and selecting mask, or you can use the C key. Now the C key will cycle through all of your channels, and if you cycle far enough it gets to mask. In fact, if you press M to reset to material, mask is the first that it shows, which is very helpful. Okay, so to add a piece to this, we're going to use our polygon options up here, and I'm going to use UV chunk fill. So this will, wherever I click, it will select that island and add it to the mask, and there we go. So I'm going to add that one, and then I'm going to add the inner as well, and same on the other side because it's a different island. There we go. So now anything I put in this folder will go onto the hood, and we just need to kind of replicate that for the top. So I'll click on the top one and switch to my mask view, and then click in the middle, and that's just one island, so I can select all of that with just one click. Excellent. Okay, so that's setting up our first bit. Next we'll set up the mask for the say the gloves and the jumpsuit and the shoes. We'll do that in a slightly different way because we'll need to paint those. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so let's work on the body layer. And what I want to do is just paint a mask around the shoes and the hands to separate my textures out. So I've selected the body, and just to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to go into focus mode, and that will just allow me to get underneath the shoes and not have anything interfering. Okay, so on the body layer we'll add a folder and another, and we'll have one called the suit and one for other. It's kind of everything else, and then we'll go add a black mask to both of those. There we go. So if I select the black mask and go to my mask mode, I can now paint in here, and providing I'm on the right tool, I'm not on the right tool at the minute, I need to be on the paintbrush tool. There we go. It will paint that in. Now it's a little bit difficult when it's all completely black like this, but I'm just going to, you know, attempt to be patient. I'm not very patient, and paint that in. Whoops. See, that's where my patience gets me, or lack of it rather. There we go. I'll refine that in a few moments, I think. That don't need it to be absolutely perfect. I just need it to be good enough. You might have a different thought on that, of course. Yeah, just making sure I haven't got any little grey bits. There we go. Now, I was a bit foolish there because I could have done kind of both of those at the same time. So let's do that for the boots, or the shoes. So up here we have a mirror mode. So if I turn it on, you'll see I'll get a red line down the middle, and that could be adjusted if you use the X, Y or Z mirror in the options, and you can even offset it and all sorts. You can even show a bisecting plane if you wanted. Now I'm just going to zoom in here and just put a thin strip around the bottom, just to give him you know, something of a shoe. It's not going to be the most extensive bit of texturing we do, these shoes, but it's nice to have that little extra bit of differentiation. There we go, let's paint around the bottom. Right. Okay, so I'm going to use just Control and right mouse just to take that down a bit, just so I can get a little bit of a finer line in there. Whoops, went all a bit wobbly there. Okay. So now I've got one hand and two shoes. So in between, what I'm going to do is I'll just paint the other one in. And when we come back, I'm going to refine those masks with a couple of filters to, you know, tighten them up a bit. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten these up now a little bit, and that's going to show up where I've got some errors. Perhaps I've not painted enough. So if I right click on the mask and add levels, I can crush the black down, and what I'm looking to get is a finer line. So let's just go to somewhere about there. I'm just going to have a look around to see whether I've got any darker bits on the mask. You see I've got some there. Now I can go back to the mask and just paint those in, and a little bit around there. Oops. Now if you want a completely straight line around here, if you're a bit more discerning than I am, you can bring your brush right down, whoops, and then click where you want to start, and then press the shift button and just move over, and it will draw an absolutely straight line through there. There we go. Just take some of that variation out. Of course I've got the levels on at the moment, so it's going to how can I put it, not sort of draw exactly. If you turn the levels off, it will, but I have the levels on so that I can see my problems. So there we go. Let's just make those a bit bigger and paint that in. Ooh. All sorts of little bits down here. Oh, crumbs. There we go, that one went in nicely. There we go. It's got a few bits that are being a bit more stubborn. I think it might have been the angle I was trying to paint at. There we go. And as you can see, I've managed to paint through. So I'll just switch my colour back to black and I'll just paint those out. There we go, because we've got symmetry on now. That should have done the other side as well. Oh, little spot down there. Okay, so that's that bit, and I see that I've put this on the wrong mask essentially, but that's okay, because all I was going to do, rather than trying to match them up, was copy this mask and then paste it into the other one. There we go. Let's switch back to mask again, and then for this one I can right click and add a filter and invert it. Where's the invert one? It's here somewhere. Invert, there we go. So now I go back to mask, and that one looks like that, and this one looks like, whoops, oh crumbs, there we go, that, and we're all good. Okay, so let's come out of focus mode and go into material, and now basically if I go back to mask, I need both selected to show that, and it won't let me do that, so can't do that. We should have an area that we could paint our suit and our hood. We've got some gloves and we've got a face. The base I'm going to leave as it is. You could put a mask on there if you wanted to, if you want to do something in particular, but I'm not going to. So what we'll do next is we'll block in the basic textures, and then we'll go in and put some detailing in. So I will talk to you in the next one. Right, so let's start with the material. I want a fabric. So we've got various fabrics in our library. I don't think I've got any more than 2 or 3 extra things in here, so we're doing it all with default substance materials. So in the body, under the suit, I'm going to drag and drop this fabric base. Because it's quite a generic, not very, can I put it, detailed thing, and we can manipulate that to what we want it to be. So first of all, the fabric colour is obviously wrong, and the scale I think is perhaps a little wrong as well. So let's go down to the colour, and for the colour I'm going to want something that's heading towards a redder colour, and I'm going to increase my saturation there, on my colour value, to get a more certain red. And depending upon how you want it, we could rotate this so that the stripes are going in a particular direction. It's going to depend a bit on your UVs, because your UVs will basically define which direction these will go. Whether they all look consistent or whether they go off in different directions. But fortunately, matte here seems to be good. Not so much around the back, but I'm not going to be showing the back too much. Okay, so that's quite nice. The stripes are too much, of course, so we can increase our scale on the UV until you get to a value you're happy with. And I think if I get any lower than that, I won't see them at all. So let's leave those as they are. So this one I want to copy over to my hood, and I could do that with an instance, but that would then take away a bit of control from me. So all I'm going to do is right click and copy layer, and then select the head, and in the hood folder I'll paste those layers. There we go. So now we have some very basic cloth. One thing I want to do on the bottom, on the body, is add a little bit of thickness, not to the material itself but to the hole. Excuse me. And I can do that by right clicking on the material Sorry. Yes, right clicking on the material and adding a fill layer. Now for this fill layer I don't want colour, rough, normal or metal. I just want a bit of height. So just leave the height channel on and then increase that value. And now I've got a little kind of rim between the gloves and the fabric of the suit. Okay, right, so next then we'll have a look at the mask and see what we can do with that. So I will talk to you then. Okay, let's turn this symmetry off, don't need that anymore. And I'm on the head texture in the mask folder. I'm just going to drag and drop this plastic PVC onto that folder. There we go. Now we can update it a little bit. So I want this to be somewhere near black, and perhaps I want it to be a little bit rougher. Let's close that out, just roughen that up a bit so that it really diffuses out the reflections. That's lovely. Okay, so I want to divide this up again because I want to put some displacement or some height into the kind of circular bit on the face mask. So let me split my view. Well, let's go 2D only, and that's this bit in here. So what I want to do is add a new folder, a new fill layer with a black mask, and I don't really have a sensible way of selecting this by kind of UV or chunk, so I'm just going to paint it into this. So let's get a hard brush. If I just type in hard up here, there we go, basic hard. I'm going to increase that out and then center myself up, hopefully, and click. Now that's given me a mask, for just that area. And if I go back to the 3D view, there we go, we should see that that's white now, and that's just because this layer's got colour on it. So if I take all of those off, and metal as well, I've just got the height, and now in my textures, if I turn off the hard, I should have some like a dotted texture here somewhere. I had it yesterday, I don't know what I've done with it now. Let's go down, let's just slide, looking for geometric patterns. Oh, we've got some hex patterns there, that might be quite nice. But I think I just want dots. There we go, got a metallic grill here. So I'm going to drag and drop that into the height channel. And you'll see I've just got the one dot in the middle, which is of no real use to me. So on the UV scale, I'm going to increase that to say 4, maybe even 8, to start to get a bit more of a pronounced view. I think I might even need to go higher than that. Let's try 12. There we go. Okay, so I can see, or it appears very much to me like my dots are, how can I put it, coming out. So I just want to invert that, and then they'll go in. There we go. We can also adjust the tile and scale here to get a better view, and that's a much closer to what I wanted, I think. Okay, so that's a bit of the mask done. We're just working on the basics here. We're gonna really go in and add more and more to this to make it a bit more detailed and more interesting. I'm just blocking in the basic textures. So this plastic PVC I think could make a nice option for our shoes and gloves. So I'll go back to the body, and on my other layer I'm going to paste that in. There we go. So we have a little man and he's got all of his textures on. We just need to now decide, you know, how we're going to detail it. So we'll start that in the next section. I'll talk to you then. Okay, so I want to put some wrinkles into the hood and the suit. So let's do that now. So I've got this base layer in the head selected for the hood, and I'm going to add a fill layer on top of that. And I'll turn off colour, metal and rough. Whoops, let's go back to 3D. There we go. And for this one, I'm going to use the new generator in 7.4. So let's right click there and just add a generator. And in the generator, I'm going to select inflate stroke shrink wrap. And when I do that, you'll see I get some quite nice little kind of wrinkles around my object. So let's go to perhaps the height channel and see what that looks like. So it's very subtle. We have some options here that we can use to adjust. Well, firstly we can change it from shrink wrap to inflate to see what that does, and I definitely want it on shrink wrap. We can raise the edges, check the edge intensity. There we go. The wrinkle intensity, or the density rather. Let's get more wrinkles around the edges. And arrange, so I can push them backwards a little bit, make them a bit more abstract, I think, in that case. And I can change the scale. And I don't think I want to change that too much. I think that was okay as it was. Okay, so let's press the M key to go back to material mode, and we'll see what we've got. And that looks pretty good, I think. Now, I don't think this is going to work quite the same on the body because of the lack of curvature or the difference in sort of model shapes. But what we can do is, let's rename this wrinkle first. I'll copy this layer and pop it onto the body layer, and I need it above this here, so right click and paste layer. There we go. And now we can see we've got some wrinkles there as well. And actually, it's not too bad. It's not far off. So let's go to the height channel again. And yeah, it's a bit much. So let's adjust this to see what we can do. So we could take the intensity down perhaps. No, that's doing nothing. Take the density down perhaps a little bit. The range. Maybe increase the scale. I don't think that's helped me at all. Let's take that back down again. I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I just want it to be, you know, pretty good. So I might actually have to put something on top of this to sort that out. So I'm going to add a levels in here, and we'll take the grey. Oh, that's not helping at all. It's because I'm on the wrong channel. See, I've got affected channel here. I need to switch this to height. And now, there we go. We can adjust that until we get a bit more kind of difference between the white and the grey. There we go. Right, so press M and come out, and then we've got some, yeah, we've got some quite nice seams. We've got a seam there, that's quite nice, going down his inner leg. We've got a seam at the back, that's pretty awful, but we can do something about that. Yeah, we might just have to adjust things a bit more. Let's do this on the fly. So let's take our grey down that way a bit. And now I've lost more or less everything. if I take the black that way, I get a little bit more back. There we go. Okay, it's going to be a bit messed up at the back, and I could paint out that error if you like, but I'm not going to be looking at this from the back, frankly. So it's not something I'm going to spend a whole load of my time, you know, trying to work out. Okay, so next we're going to add some kind of colour variation across, so that it's not quite as perfect as it is, and we'll do that in the next bit. Okay, so one of the nice things about having our materials kind of separated into folders like this is we can control certain areas, but then if we put some above it, we can override everything. So if I add this fill layer across the top, and then we'll add a black mask to it, and let's have a generator of some description. Let's try dirt, see what that does. There we go. So that's way too dirty, so let's take that level right down. There we go. I'm going to increase the grunge amount so it spreads out a little more. And you know, while this looks particularly grungy and dirty at the moment, I'm going to take that scale down just to get a bit of repeating out of it. Whoops. A little bit up. There we go. We can have it do something, you know, very subtle. So for example, if I take the colour and change it from a normal to something else like a multiply, but then switch the colour out for something else, I can simply darken those areas. So rather than having them how can I put it, really obvious, that's blending in far nicer. So let's take that grey up a little bit. So white, it's not doing anything. If I take it down to grey, it's much more subtle. There we go. Let's close that one out. Not going to need metal on this. Roughness, I can change the roughness value in those areas as well. So if I turn it right up, they'll be super rough, and if I take it right down, they'll be super shiny. So I just want them to be slightly different to the material underneath, essentially. So well, the easiest thing to do here is, rather than guess, is go to the roughness map, and we can see then the difference. So if I take it right up to white, it's too much. If I take it down just a little bit, in fact I want it to be rougher than the rest of it, because it's some sort of dirt layer, so I want it to have a different kind of reflecting value. There we go. Okay, so because this is kind of generated, and you know, nothing's really going on, nothing is dependent upon brush strokes or anything like that, we can simply copy this one and go to the head and paste it in. There we go. And if we look on the roughness map there, in fact if we look at the mask on this one, which is what I really want to look at, I want to see what it's doing, and it's not actually doing very much. So let's go to that dirt layer and increase our dirt, so that's happening mostly on the mask. Let's adjust the contrast a bit. I can see a little bit happening on the hood, but not an awful lot. Let's take the grunge amount down a little bit, make it a little bit more subtle, and there we go. Right, so back to material, and now we've added a little bit of variation. Okay, so I'm more or less at the end of the kind of texturing aspect to this now, in terms of the blocking in and getting a bit of detail, only broad details. So next we'll start to look at adding some actual kind of physical details, almost modelled, with height and normals and things like that. So we'll do that in the next stage. Okay, so we're going to add a belt now, and I've got the wrinkle layer selected. I'm just going to add a fill layer above that, and for this fill layer what I need to do is turn off a few of these. Well, actually I'll leave them on for the moment, but what I do need to do is change my height blend, because once I add a black mask to this, you'll see what the problem is. When I paint this black mask in, it's going to essentially take on the height from the layers underneath it. So let's turn symmetry on. There we go. And now I can just get around here to get as far as I can around that side of that body. I'm going to click there, and with shift held down I'll come over to the center. There we go. And then if I go around the back, this is why I wanted it to be as far around the back as possible, so I could see the end there. So I'll click there and then shift and move around the back. There we go. And with a bit of luck, I haven't got too much of a break in there. There's a little one, so I'll just size my brush down and just paint that to smooth it out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so you can see now that the height information is being inherited from below, and I want to override that. So if I go to base color and height, and then change that from L dodge to normal, and now I've got no height information, it's just the the belt itself. Okay, let's give that a material. So select on the actual layers itself. We'll go and find leather in here, I think. I'll use artificial leather, and I think that's alright, that should do it. Okay, so I want a somewhat of a buckle there, nothing too much. So I'm going to add a paint layer over the top of that. Let's pick out a metal, perhaps aluminium. That's quite a nice one. I'm just going to scale this down to the size of the belt. Let's turn symmetry off for the moment, and I'm just going to check my alphas to see what sort of options I've got in here. And I'm looking for a square, and not a square, a circle, a circle without an interior, a ring, in fact. But yeah, there's nothing really jumping out at me. There we go, we have a shape. So I just want to scale that a little bit, just to about the size, and then I'll drop that in. Actually, I'm going to turn a little bit of height on here first and give it a little extra height, and I'll click in there. There we go. Now he's got a little buckle. Nothing very exciting, but I'm not really going for 100% detail. Okay, so what else? I think you could do with a zip. So we'll pop a little zip in the next one. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so now layer order is kind of important here. So I want to put a zip down the front here, and I want to go through the belt to give it a bit of realism. I don't want to kind of avoid issues. I want to embrace them so that it really kind of fits together. So what I'm going to do is show you the wrong way. So if I add a paint layer to the top here, and then in my brushes, if I just type tool, we've got this zipper advanced. Now I'm going to change the colour to to some kind of a greyish colour rather than the gold colour, and then control and right mouse to bring that down. And let's go to isolate mode, or focus mode rather. I'm going to start there and press shift and come down to around there. Now that's interfering with the belt, which is what I absolutely don't want to do, and that's just because the layer is above the belt and I need to take it down so that it's below, and then it fits perfectly. Okay, so with that then I need the advanced zipper here. I'm just going to scale that down and pop it on the bottom. Won't need to change the colour, of course. There we go. Ooh, up a bit more. There we go, something like that. And similarly for the top, need to change that colour down, scale it down. I want it just below that neckline there. A bit bigger. There we go. Let's come out of focus mode. Now he's got a very tiny zip, but that's good. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna kind of think about it between videos. I want to put the design on the mask, you know, the shape on there. But beyond that, I think I'm about there. Apart from the base, we need to do that, of course. Okay, so let's do the design next, and then we'll finish off with the base. So, talk to you in a moment. Okay, so let's put the design on the mask. Once my G-force thing gets out of the way. There we go. So let's select that. So we just need a top layer for this. I'm just going to create a paint here. Let's go and pick a material. I just want the kind of matte plastic here, I think. There we go. The roughness, let's have a look at the roughness value that we have currently. So it's quite dark, so that's quite shiny, so I want something that's going to be a bit more matte. So let's go perhaps to somewhere just above middle. I don't want metallic, so just colour and rough is fine. Of course the colour wants to be white. Let's pop that to a near white and get front on. And now I just need to sort my brush out. Okay, so let's go to the brushes. I want a hard brush. Oops, again spelling or typing has gone pear-shaped. Let's scale that up a bit, and I want to put a circle in here. So let's see if there's an alpha. Well, I know there's an alpha because we used it earlier. There we go. Let's see if there's a better one though. So there's that one, and that's about it. There we go. Let's pick that one, scale that up, and just pop that down. And now we've got our design. Excellent. Okay, let's snip over to roughness just to have a look. Yes, that's good. That should rough up that middle bit and give us that nice little bit of extra. Okay, so that was easy. Next then we'll just do the base, and I'll have a think about what sort of base I want. I haven't thought yet. So let's do that next. Okay, so I think I've decided upon a metal base. So let's select the base and delete that paint layer. Clear our filter and head for materials. Let's type in metal, and yeah, I want to give it some sort of interest. So perhaps this aluminium padding one will be nice. Let's drag and drop that in and see if we can adjust it. There we go. So what have we got? We've got colour. So I don't want that there. Let's take that to a kind of grey, somewhere around there, and I'm going to increase my scale. 4 perhaps. No, 4's too much. 3. There we go. Let's see what other options we've got here. So the borders. So do I want the borders darker? I think I want them lighter. Let's just adjust those a little bit. There we go. And apart from that, I think that's okay. Let's check the pattern, see what we can do with that. So we can take the fold intensity down if we wish. This one seems quite heavy. It's doing a lot of calculating. There we go. And the grid intensity. There we go. And I think that's okay. But it's all a bit plain really, so let's pop a layer on top of that and a black mask, and we'll add a generator, and let's use dirt. There we go. And we'll just adjust this down a bit. I don't want it to be too strong. Just want something, you know, that's going to have it sitting on, you know, have the figure sitting on there. You know, if there's no kind of connection, no kind of shadow or wear or something, it's it tends to, you know, break the magic a little bit. What else should we do? Right, so on the layer, let's take this to make it a little darker. Oops. Let's close that. I want the roughness up so it doesn't shine as much as the rest of the base. I don't need normal or height, and I don't need metal either. There we go. And we could just put an edge wear on this as well, I think. So let's pop another layer in and add a black mask. Whoops, wrong place. Right click, add generator. Let's go to metal edge. There we go. Now we get the opportunity to wear our edge a little bit. So let's take the level down, make it not quite so obvious. And the contrast, just soften it out a bit by reducing that. Let's smooth the edges out a little bit. There we go. We could override some things here if we wanted to, but I don't think I do. I was thinking more specifically the height, so it was kind of take the height out around the edges. So let's go, yeah, we're already on the height, so if I switch that to normal, that should do the job. There we go. Okay, so quick adjustments, take those off. Let's increase the roughness quite high and take the colour down a little bit to darken them rather than lighten them, or don't lighten them quite as much as they are. Right, so I think I'm happy with that. Yes, so I hope you found that enjoyable and useful. I hope you learned something and get more comfortable in Substance Painter. You know, I want to do something that uses just Substance Painter kind of things, you know, assets, and just a few techniques to, you know, show that you can do quite a lot with not an awful lot of effort. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so again, any comments, just pop them in the comments below. If you have any questions, add them in there. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you again soon.